Welcome to Daily Conversation. This is Mr. K.
This is Eric.
Yeah, today is the 29th of May 2021 and the time now is 6:16 a.m. Well, today is our reading session and we are going to read the book Atomic Habit. And before we get started, please click the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Alright, so here we go. Yep, and today we start from 618. Yeah, so if you mind if I start the reading first.
Okay.
If you want to make a big habit a big part of your life, make the cue a big part of your environment. The most persistent behaviors usually have multiple cues. Consider how many different ways a smoker could be prompted to pull out a cigarette. Driving in the car, seeing a friend smoke, feeling stressed at work, and so on.
The same strategies can be employed for good habits. By sprinkling triggers throughout your surroundings, you increase the odds that you'll think about your habit throughout the day. Make sure the best choice in the most obvious ones. Making a best decision is easy and natural when the cues for good habits are right in front of you.
Environment design is powerful, not only because it influences how we engage with the world, but also because we rarely do it. Most people live in a world others have created for them, but you can alter the spaces where you live and work to increase your exposure to positive cues and reduce your exposure to negative ones. Environment design allows you to take back control and become the architect of your life. Be the designer of your world and not merely the consumer of it.
The context is the cue. The cues that trigger a habit can start out very specific, but over time, your habits become associated not with a single trigger, but with the entire context surrounding the behavior.
For example, many people drink more in social situations than they would ever drink alone. The trigger is rarely a single cue, but rather the whole situation. Watching your friends order drinks, hearing the music at the bar, seeing the beers on tap.
We mentally assign our habits to the locations in which they occurred. The home, the office, the gym. Each location develops a connection to certain habits and routines. You establish a particular relationship with the objects on your desk, the items on your kitchen's counter, the things in your bedroom.
Our behavior is not defined by the objects in the environment, but by our relationship to them. In fact, this is a useful way to think about the influence of the environment on your behavior. Stop thinking about your environment as filled with objects. Start thinking about it as filled with relationships. Think in terms of how you interact with the spaces around you. For one person, her couch is the place where she reads. for an hour each night. For someone else, the couch is where he watches televisions and eats a bowl of ice cream after work. Different people can have different memories, and thus different habits associated with the same place.
The good news, you can train yourself to link a particular habit with a particular context. In one study, scientists instructed insomniacs to get into bed only when they were tired. If they couldn't fall asleep, they were told to sit in a different room until they became sleepy. Over time, subjects began to associate the context of their bed with the actions of sleeping, and it became easier to quickly fall asleep when they climbed in bed. Their brains learned that sleeping, not browsing on their phones, not watching televisions, not staring at the clock, was the only actions that happens in that room.
Okay, the first line. This is insomniac, and you pronounce
Insomnia,
it as insomniac.
insomnia,
So it's insomniac.
insomnia.
Yeah. And then also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth line, this one is browsing, and you pronounce as
Browsing,
browsing.
browsing.
Yeah, browsing. The power of context also reveals an important strategy. Habits can be easier to change in a new environment. It helps to escape the subtle triggers and cues that nudge you towards your current habits. Go to a new place, a different coffee shop, a bench in the park, a corner of your room you seldom use, and create a new routine there.
It's easier to associate a new habit with a new context than to build a new habit in the face of competing cues. It can be difficult to get to bed early if you watch televisions in your bedroom each night. It can be hard to study in the living room without getting distracted if that's where you always play video games. But when you step outside your normal environment, you leave your behavioral biases behind. You aren't battling the old environmental cues, which allows new habits to form without interruption.
Want to think more creatively? Move to a bigger room, a rooftop patio, or a building with expansive architecture. Take a break from the space where you do your daily work, which is also linked to your current thought patterns.
Patio. I think the first line, this is
Oh,
patio, not patio.
okay. Patio. Okay,
Mm.
patio.
Trying to eat healthier, it's likely that you shop on autopilot at your regular supermarket. Try a new grocery store. You may find it easier to avoid unhealthy food when your brain doesn't automatically know where located in the store.
When you can't manage to get to an entirely new environment, redefine or rearrange your current one. Create a, create a separate space for work, study, exercise, entertainment, and cooking. The mantra I find useful is one space, one use.
When I started my career as an entrepreneur, I would often work from my couch or at the kitchen table. In the evenings, I found it very difficult to stop working. There were there was no clear division between the end of work times and the beginning of personal time. Was the kitchen table my office or the space where I ate meals? Was the couch where I relaxed or where I sent emails? Everything happened in the same everything happened in the same place.
Okay, one, two, three, fourth line, and this is couch, and you pronounce couch.
Couch.
Yeah, couch. A few years later, I could finally afford to move to a home with a separate room for my office. Suddenly, work was something that happened in here, and personal life was something that happened out there. It was easier for me to turn off the professional side of my brain when there was a clear dividing line between work life and home life. Each room had a one primary use. The kitchen was for cooking. The office, the office was for working.
Whenever possible, avoid mixing the context of one habit with another. When you start mixing contexts, you start mixing habits, and the easier ones will usually win out. It's one reason why the versatility of modern technology is both a strength and a weakness. You can use your phone for all sorts of tasks, which makes it powerful device. But when you can use your phones to do nearly anything, it becomes hard to associate it with one task. You want to be productive, but also conditioned to browse social media, check emails, and play video games whenever you open your phone. It's a mismatch of cues. It's a mishmash. Mismatch.
Okay. You may be thinking, you don't understand. I live in New York City. My apartment is the size of a smartphone. I need each room to play multiple roles. Multiple roles. Fair enough. If your space is limited, divide your room into activity zones. A chair for reading, a desk for writing, a table for eating. You can do the same with your digital spaces. I know a writer who used his computer only for writing, his tablet only for reading, and his phone only for social media and texting. Every habit should have a home.
If you can manage to stick with these strategies, each context will become associated with a particular habit and mode of thought. Habits thrive under predictable circumstances like these. Focus comes automatically when you are sitting at your work desk. Relaxation is easier when you are in the space designed for that purpose. Sleep comes quickly when it's only things that happens in your bedroom. You want behavior that's stable and predictable. You need an environment that's stable and predictable.
A stable environment where everything has a place and a purpose is an environment where habits can easily form. Chapter summary. Small changes in context can lead to a large changes in behavior over time. Every habit is initiated by a cue, we are more likely to notice cues that stand out. Make the cues of good habits obvious in environment. Gradually, your habits become associated not with a single trigger, but with the entire context surrounding the behavior. The context becomes the cue. It's easier to build new habits in a new environment because you are not fighting against old cues. Seventh, the secret to self-control.
In 1971, as the Vietnam War was heading into its 16th year, Congressman Robert Steele from Connecticut and Morgan Murphy from Illinois made a discovery that stunned the American public. While visiting the troops, they had learned that over 15% of U.S. soldiers stations there were heroin addicts. Follow-up research reveals that 35% of service members in Vietnam had tried heroin and as many as 20% was addicted. The problem was even worse than they had initially thought.
Okay, first line, the name of this country, Vietnam. There is two syllable at the front part, and you pronounce at Vietnam. So it's actually
Vietnam,
Vietnam.
Vietnam,
Yeah, Vietnam.
Vietnam.
The discovery led to a flurry of activity in Washington, including the creation of the Special Action Office of Drug Abuse Prevention under President Nixon to promote prevention and rehabilitation and to track addicted service members when they return home.
Lee Robbins was one of the researchers in charge. In a finding that completely upended the accepted beliefs about addictions, Robbins found that when soldiers who had been heroin users returned home, only 5% of them became re-addicted within a year, and just 12% relapsed within 3 years. In other words, approximately 9 out of 10 soldiers who used heroin in Vietnam eliminated their addictions nearly overnight.
This finding contradicted the prevailing view at the time, which considered heroin addiction to be a permanent and irreversible condition. Instead, Robbins revealed that addiction could spontaneously dissolve if there was a radical change in the environment. In Vietnam, soldiers spent all day surrounded by queues triggering uh, heroin use. It was easy to access. They were engulfed by the constant stress of war. They built friendships with fellow soldiers who were also heroin users, and they were thousands of miles from home. Once a soldier returned to the United States, though he found himself in an environment devoid of those triggers. When the context changed, so did the habit.
Okay, there are three. The first is this one. Can you see my highlight?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is spontaneously. You pronounce spontaneously. It's
Oh, yeah.
spontaneously.
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 Okay.
And the second is this one. This one is heroin. You pronounce heroin.
Heroin. Okay.
You pronounce
Heroin.
heroin.
Okay.
And the third one is this. This is devoid. You pronounce devoid. You pronounce the sound. Yeah,
Oh,
devoid
okay.
and devoid
Devoid.
is D. So the behind D would uh your your tongues will touch your upper mouth, and then there's no air or comes out any. Yeah. So
Okay.
devoid is is L is sound. So they'll still have the sounds and the air comes out from your mouth. So devoid is D sound.
Okay.
Compare these situations to that of a typical drug user. Someone becomes addicted at home or with friends, goes to clinic to get cleaned, which devoid of all the environmental stimuli that prompt their habits, then returns to their own neighborhood with all their previous cues that caused them to get addicted in the first place. It's no one it's no wonder that usually you see numbers that are the exact opposite of those in Vietnam study. Typically, 90% of heroin users become addicted once they return home from rehab.
The Vietnam studies ran counter to many of our cultural beliefs about bad habits because it challenged the conventional association of unhealthy behavior as a moral weakness. If you're overweight, a smoker, or an addict, you've been told your entire life that it is because you lack self control. Maybe even that you're a bad person. The idea that a little bit of discipline would solve all our problems is deeply embedded in our culture.
Recent research, however, shows something different. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are bad, are better at structure are, are better at structuring their their lives in a way that it does not require it does not it does not require heroic heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations.
The people with the best self control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So, yes, pers- perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success. But the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. Yeah, this is where I have read until.
Mm, okay. So, make a summary.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, firstly there is a part talk about the cues, and also talk about environment, and then they also use the word, they use the term context. So uh, not only say that the cue can lead to uh, the action of a habit. Actually, that the idea of the author is that after some time, the cue and also together with the other cue in that environment uh, will become a context. It's also something like an environment, and then people will create a relationship with that environment, so that next time when people are in that environment, they will do that particular habit naturally. And this is one part, and then there is also one part talk about uh, a better way to form a new habit, which is he suggests that we may find a new place, a new environment to start a new habit. And then the reason of this is because there are no other, they call it competing cues. Yeah, which means that when you come to this place, this place is totally new, and then it may not be totally new, but just not so many other things that can distract us from doing other things. So the idea here in one sentence is one place, one use. Yeah. So um, and then there are also something like mixed context, means that if we don't apply the strategy of one place, one use, then actually we are in a situation that we try to use a place, and then that place is a mixed context, and then so that our habits will also something like a mixed habit. So in that case, the easiest one will win. Yeah, so if we want to start or form a new habit in a place, because that is new, and if that is not the easiest one, maybe we will not do that particular thing, and we will choose the easiest one to do. Yeah, and then lastly, uh, there are a lot of example, and in this book they use the story of Vietnam uh, soldiers, and then the addiction of heroin, and then they also prove that a new environment can help in uh, breaking a bad habit easier. Yeah, so
Mm,
these are my summary today.
yeah. There are three things I want to add in.
Okay.
The first one is about the the environment. Okay, and the environments. Uh, the author said uh, if 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 there are no competing cues,
Yeah.
and then we're able to form the habits or do the habits more easier.
Mm.
And in this chapter is the make it easy. And to me, this is quite to me there is some linking here, which is you not only want to make the habit easy to
Mm.
form, you also want to make it easier. You want to make the cues easier amongst the the cues around you. So that means you want to make the habits that you want to form.
Mm.
You want to form the new habits, and then you want to make the cues of that new habits outstanding from others cues,
Mm.
which is the cues of your old habits. So you not only make it easy, you only want to make it easier in your environment.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So by changing a new place, because after you change a new place, everything start from zero. Something like everything start from zero. So you are more easier to create the cues to form the new habits
Mm.
in that new environment. Mm. And the second and the second is about uh, the mixing context. And to me, this is not the bad thing because this is quite similar to the habit stacking. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
So, uh, but the author suggests us not to mix our habit together because the easier one will win out eventually. So, what is the easier ones? The easier one is actually our bad habit. Mm.
Mm.
So, in subconsciously, we stack our habits automatically. For example, after we came back from office, and then maybe we will turn on our computer.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is the second one. And then the third one is actually I found that there are some link here, which is uh, the link between the links between the habits. It says the habits uh, initially the habits is just a single one, and the cues is just the single trigger. But over time, it will associate with the environment.
Mm.
So the next times you comes into these environments, no matter you do what, eventually you will do a particular things. Or maybe there are many cues will make you do a particular things in that environment. For example, like playing a font. Maybe maybe in the environments of your room, in your rooms, you will play the font. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you already forms the because your room becomes an environment that allow you to relax. Yeah,
Mm.
so in these rooms, you will do anything to make you relax, like playing the phone.
Yeah.
Mm. And this is one part. The relationship between this, okay, and the system and goals, or we should say the three approaches, the two approaches, and then the three focus, which is the goals, systems, and the identity.
Mm.
And in the introduction, this author said that uh, how can uh, how the identity formed. Mm. So we we start from systems, okay, and then we start from systems, or maybe we start from the goals. we want to do some things, and over time, the more we do, and then the more we believe.
Yeah.
So this is something said by the authors, and then I found that this is there are some linking here. Why? Because in the environments, let's say in a new environment, and you want to build a new habits,
Yeah.
and the more you do, and then the more cues will associate to that environment. So no matter what you decide to do in the environments, eventually you will do a particular things. Yeah. So the environment now become associated. Sorry, I miss the trigger. The trigger, the cues now associated with that new environment. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it also supports that the idea that the more you do, and then the more you believe, and then the more you will keep doing.
Yeah.
Because you physically create more cues and link links all the cues to the environment. Yeah. So this is my summary.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, just a little about the some real situation that can be happen. For example, I saw some people they have on their desk they have the computer, and then they have the speaker, which is the loudspeaker, and then it is something like the, the the sound system, and then also they have a good chair in front of the desk. So I think that is a very good example that how the queue can how the queue and also become a context, that when people see the computer, see the chair, which is so relaxed when playing games, and also with the sound system. So yeah, I think it is very hard to let's say if you want to not to play so much games, and then that will be difficult if you don't change this context.
Yeah. But they create the environment by themselves, right? They buy a good chair, they buy
Yeah.
a good computer, yeah, a
Yeah.
good speaker, a good the headset.
Yeah, so that
So,
means that if one day they change their mind, not saying that they want to quit games totally, but just that to maybe reduce from, let's say, 3 hours a day of games to 1 hour or half an hour. So I think one of the things they need to do is to do something on this context.
yeah, and one of another strategies instead of doing with the computer is actually downsize, downgrade your internet bandwidth.
Oh,
Yeah, and
it's a more direct way.
I remember in the past, I faced a lot of delays when I was playing the games. Yeah, so I think it could be one of the reasons that I eventually quit the game. Yeah, because there are so many delays, and I couldn't play well. So at the end, I couldn't play well, so I don't wish to play. Yeah, I don't wish to continue to play. Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all.
Yeah, that's all for my talking.
That's all for our today conversations. How do you feel? Did you enjoy the conversations? Please tell us what you think of our conversations. We are not native speakers. If you found any vocabulary mistake that we made, please also comment to let us know. because we want to learn more and improve ourselves. Remember to like and subscribe to us. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.